3 weeks ago, my husband and I heard what we suspected was a gunshot at about 9 p.m. on a Friday. We were concerned, but nothing came of it really. For the last 2 weeks, I have gradually paid more attention to the fact our neighbors have not seemed present, aside from their cars in the driveway. First thing was the obvious overgrown grass. We have an HOA, so this is really not something that just happens from time to time. Next, we noticed their cars have stayed parked in the driveway in the same backed-in, staggered position. My husband and I come and go frequently, so we should have definitely seen them leave, arrive, or even change the positioning of their cars, similar to the past. Also, their assumed kitchen window is across from our bedroom window, and I have noticed the light of that room is always on. Morning, midday, night. It's always on. Lastly, they did not take their trash this week. I know this doesn't have to be done every single trash day, but I definitely noted that they hadn't taken it to the street or even filled their outside can. I contacted our local police department and they came out. All accessible windows and doors were locked and unable to see inside. The officer noted he could hear what was obviously a TV, but no one answered and there was no obvious signs of people present. The officer told me to keep an eye out for any changes as well as no changes at all. And that was it. I have tried to find the neighbor on social media to see if maybe they are on holiday, but I have absolutely no luck even finding any kind of profile. Sue, could I be overreacting? Edit. First, thank you all for your feedback, tips, and additional things to look out for. To clarify a few things. Dead, yes. I think my neighbors are dead. Fudge. I didn't realize so many people would be ill over seeing Una live. I blame myself for being halfway into social media. Next, when I initially called the non-emergency line, I did mention the supposed gunshot. I also mentioned it again when I spoke to the officer who came out. I specifically asked for a well check when I called. As far as how the police handled it, not sure what I am supposed to do about that. For clarification, we live in Texas. Gunshots and fireworks and random-ass noises are not unheard of. When no other neighbors seemed to be concerned, I chalked it up to someone fucking around. Aside from that, I posted on our Ring app group, and others were saying the possibility of fireworks was significant since they had been happening in neighborhoods nearby. We did knock on the door different times throughout the day. No movement, no noises, no changes in lights. I did reach out to who I thought was our HOA. After hearing the story, she informed me we're actually under new management and gave me that number with urgency. Their office was closed for the day, so I plan on trying again today. I will update when there is actual developments. Relevant comments. OP on hearing one gunshot only. OP, yep, just one. And then radio silence on our street the rest of the night. Commenter 1. This is really interesting. Can you think of anything else that is out of character for them? Mail piling up? Amazon packages left out? Garbage or flies buzzing anywhere? OP. Mailbox had mail and a small package inside when I looked to confirm the spelling of their names. No trash out. Both outside cans have remained empty. Redditors tell OP to keep trying and find answers regarding the neighbors. OP. My husband told me about a coworker that did a flip on a house that had a man dead in it for 3 years. He was retired and his bills were all on autopay. His only family was out of state. So I agree with you. Only way to get answers is to keep looking / asking for answers. OP on what she knows about her neighbors and if they have families or friends around. OP. Off of assumption, they are late 30s, early 40s. I know the lady works in healthcare. They either don't have social media or don't use their government name. Finding any family has been damn near impossible, as well as finding out if they are on holiday. Although they are quiet and keep to theirself, as do we, there are things that are easy to notice, i.e. the trash not being by the curb, recycle not put out, and the grass being overgrown. All things I know are very routine for their household. Actually, we were able to find out yesterday, via my husband having access to housing details, he's a mortgage loan originator, that they are tenants and the owner of the house rents it out privately. We know his name, but unfortunately, could not find any contact info. Update 1. I'm sorry to keep you all waiting. I feel like I was in the Twilight Zone, y'all. Turns out, my neighbors were not dead in their house next door. Basically where I left off. I was going to contact the correct HOA for our community. And I did. The lady I spoke with was kind of shit for help until she realized she was able to see the owner's name and had access to his email. She promptly emailed him after I expressed all of my concerns. Now, I'm not going to lie. I really had a moment where I thought maybe the landlord, owner of the house, had killed them. He came over to the house the day after I talked to HOA and wasn't there long. He made sure to turn off the lights and TV. Another 2 days went by and nothing more seemed to change. Until all of a sudden one of the cars in the driveway was gone. I was so confused. Eventually the car returned, however, still no one would answer the door. I'm thinking the landlord was putting on this facade because he knew someone was watching. Again, Twilight Zone here. Anyway, a few more days go by and an extra car is parked on the road. A woman and children are leaving as I'm arriving home. So I call out to her and ask her if she's spoken to the people who live there. She was the woman/neighbor's sister, and turns out the woman that occupies the home was in a horrible accident. She was reluctant to give any details, and honestly I didn't want to pry, so all I asked was if her partner was okay, to which she responded, he will no longer be living here with her. I thought that to be a bit odd since his car is still there. Jail maybe? Anyway, the grass still hasn't been cut, and the trash still hasn't been out. I'm not sure the state she is in, so I'm considering offering to help her out, or at the least take her a meal. But I'm also feeling insecure about the fact that I feel like a fudging idiot. How do I tell her I'm glad you're not dead when she actually did almost die? Woozy face. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Don't feel badly. Obviously, something did happen. You just don't know the details. I find it odd that the police didn't seem to know what it was when they came and did the welfare check you described in your original post. I mean, if she had a horrible accident and he no longer lives there, it sounds like something the police might know about. Opie, I thought this too. I live in a city with a huge police department, so maybe things got lost in translation? If that's even possible. Commenter 2. He shot her maybe? And she in the hospital and he's in jail? If you know his name, Google your city or county inmate list and search his name. Commenter 3. Don't feel badly. Obviously, something did happen. You just don't know the details. I find it odd that the police didn't seem to know what it was when they came and did the welfare check you described in your original post. I mean, if she had a horrible accident and he no longer lives there, it sounds like something the police might know about. Update 2. So, after my last update, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something off about the whole situation with the sister, the accident, and the partner no longer living there. My husband, being the sensible one, kept telling me to let it go, but I couldn't. Something just felt wrong. Like, deeply wrong. First of all, despite my good intentions to offer help, I never got the chance to talk to the woman again. I saw her sister's car maybe once or twice, but other than that, nada. The grass is still growing like we live in a jungle. Trash still not taken out. And weirdest of all, the lights that the landlord turned off, they came back on a few days ago. Not just the kitchen light, every light in the house. Like someone's throwing a 24/7 light show. Now, remember how y'all suggested I check the inmate list for the partner? Well, I did it. And guess what? There's no one by his name in jail. No arrests. Not even a traffic violation on record. Dude has vanished like a fart in the wind. I even tried Googling the guy, and all I found was some old employment record from years ago, nothing recent. At this point, I'm convinced something way more sinister is going on. But here's where it gets really wild. A few days ago, I noticed an unmarked van parked down the street. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then I realized it's there every night. Same spot, different times. The van doesn't move during the day, and there's never anyone getting in or out that I can see. Maybe I've watched too many spy movies, but my gut was telling me this was no coincidence. So, I casually mentioned it to a neighbor. I didn't want to seem paranoid, so I framed it like, hey, is anyone else getting weird vibes from that van? And guess what? I wasn't the only one. Another neighbor said they'd seen someone dressed in black hanging around near the van late at night, but when they tried to get a closer look, the person disappeared down the alley between the houses. At this point, I'm basically in full detective mode. I told my husband, and he rolled his eyes, of course, but even he couldn't deny that things were starting to feel very strange. And then last night happened. I woke up at 2:30 a.m. to this loud banging noise, like someone was pounding on a door. I was ready to chalk it up to a dream, but then I heard it again closer this time. My husband was snoring like a chainsaw, so I grabbed my phone and went to the window. I peeked through the blinds, heart racing, and there it was, the unmarked van, headlights off, but the driver's side door wide open. I couldn't see anyone around it, but the banging continued. This time, it sounded like it was coming from inside my neighbor's house. That house, the one where no one's supposed to be. I don't know what possessed me, but I opened the window a crack to listen. I couldn't hear voices, but the banging was steady, like someone was trying to get out, not in. My mind was racing. Should I call the cops again? Would they even take me seriously after last time? And then, just like that, the noise stopped. I stayed frozen at the window, waiting for something else to happen. But the van door closed, the engine roared to life, and it drove off, disappearing down the street like nothing had ever happened. I barely slept after that. This morning, the house next door looked the same as it has for weeks. Overgrown grass, cars in the driveway, lights on, no movement. But the weird part? There was no sign of the banging or the van. Like it was some bizarre fever dream. I feel like I'm spiraling, y'all. My husband is convinced I'm overreacting, but I swear something is not right. Why would the lights be on again if the woman is still recovering from this accident and her partner is mysteriously out of the picture? Why was someone banging on the door in the middle of the night? And what the hell is up with that van? I haven't called the cops again yet. I'm honestly afraid they'll think I'm the neighborhood crazy lady if I keep bothering them. But I can't shake the feeling that there's something more to this. That this isn't just some normal, run-of-the-mill situation. I don't know. Maybe I should knock on the door again. Or maybe I should just let it go before I get in too deep. Update 3. Alright y'all, I wasn't planning on updating again so soon. But things have escalated way beyond what I ever expected. So, after that weird van incident, I couldn't shake the paranoia. I decided to do what any reasonable person would do. More internet sleuthing. My husband was getting real annoyed with me at this point. He actually told me, "You need a hobby that isn't stalking our neighbors." I mean, rude, but also not wrong. Anyway, I spent hours digging online. I looked up old property records, searched through obscure forums, hell. I even tried to see if the house had any weird history. But everything seemed pretty normal. No murders, no hauntings, nothing to suggest this house was some cursed death trap. But then, I stumbled on something that sent chills down my spine. A news article from 2 years ago. Turns out, a guy with the same last name as the man who lived next door had been arrested for domestic violence in a neighboring town. The charges were dropped, but the details were vague, just said the incident involved his partner and serious injury. This couldn't be a coincidence, right? My heart was racing as I read it over and over, trying to connect the dots. Was this guy violent? Did that gunshot we heard weeks ago have something to do with it? Is that why he's no longer living there? But things got even weirder when I checked the inmate list again that night. This time, his name was there. Recently added. He had been arrested for violating a restraining order. Now, I'm not saying I cracked the case wide open, but y'all, something sketchy is definitely going on here. I didn't know whether to feel validated or terrified. The fact that this guy was arrested just after I started hearing weird noises at the house? The unmarked van? The lights suddenly coming back on? What if he had come back to the house, violating that restraining order, and that banging I heard was him trying to get inside? But I wasn't about to let this information sit with me alone. I marched my paranoid self right back to the police station this time. I went in person. I told them everything. The arrest, the noises, the van. I even showed them the news article. The officer gave me the same tired look they'd given me before, like I was some bored housewife making mountains out of molehills. But they did agree to send someone out again for another welfare check. And this time, I waited. I didn't just watch from my window. I stood in my driveway like a damn neighborhood watch captain, phone in hand, ready to record anything suspicious. The cop arrived, knocked on the door, and I held my breath. No answer, just like last time. They checked around, but here's where it gets creepy. This time, they noticed the back door was unlocked. Now, I've been keeping an eye on this house, and I swear no one's been in or out. So how the hell did that door end up unlocked? The cop didn't enter, they said, without a direct emergency. They couldn't just walk in. But they left with the promise of looking into it. Meanwhile, I'm over here losing my mind, imagining all kinds of horrors lurking inside. And then, just as I was about to head back inside, guess who pulls up? The sister. She got out of the car, looking frantic, like she knew something was up. I didn't even wait for her to say anything. I blurted out everything. The noises, the van, the unlocked door. At first, she looked like she wanted to brush me off, but the more I talked, the more her face paled. And then she said something I wasn't ready for. I've been scared to come back here. Apparently, after the woman the tenant had her accident, and I'm still not clear on what exactly happened, the guy her partner had been acting really strange. He got increasingly controlling, paranoid, and even violent. That's when the restraining order came into play. The sister wasn't sure if the gunshot I'd heard was connected, but she admitted that the family had been worried he might show up again. And now that he's in jail, she was there to pack up her sister's things, to get her out of the house for good. So there we were, standing in the driveway, me clutching my phone like a lifeline, her trying to hold it together, when suddenly, get this, the van pulls up again. No markings, same driver, same eerie feeling crawling up my spine. It stops in front of the house, engine idling. The sister froze, her face going pale again. "That's him," she whispered. "That's his friend." My heart sank into my stomach. I thought the guy was in jail? Who the hell was this? The van didn't move for what felt like an eternity. And then, just as quickly as it arrived, it sped off. Gone. like it had never been there. I didn't sleep last night. I don't know if I'll sleep tonight. The house is still dark. The grass is still overgrown. And that van? It hasn't been back since. Update 4. Okay, y'all, I genuinely don't know if I'm losing my mind or if I'm in the middle of some real-life horror story, but I have to tell you what just went down. I wasn't planning on updating again so soon. I figured after that whole van incident, things might calm down. Maybe I'd get some closure and we could all move on with our lives. Yeah, no, far from it. So, a couple of days passed since the last update, and I'm trying to keep my paranoia in check. The sister came back one more time, and I could tell she was in a hurry to pack up her siblings' things and get the hell out of Dodge. I didn't talk to her again. I figured, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe things will finally go back to normal. But of course, the universe wasn't going to let me off that easy. It started again last night, around 1 a.m. I had just fallen asleep when I heard this strange sound outside. Not banging like before, this was different. Almost like a low hum. At first, I thought maybe it was the wind or one of those weird sounds your house makes when you're home alone. But then I realized it was coming from the house next door. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and made my way to the window. Sure enough, there was movement inside the house. Just faint shadows, but they were definitely there. I swear my stomach dropped to my feet. There was no car in the driveway. No lights on. How was there someone inside? I grabbed my phone and debated calling the cops again, but I hesitated. What if they think I'm just a paranoid nutjob? I mean, how many times can I call them about the same house before they start rolling their eyes the second I dial? So instead, I decided to wait it out and watch. Stupid, I know, but curiosity and adrenaline got the better of me. I watched the shadows move around the house, and then, suddenly, the humming noise stopped. The whole street went dead quiet. I could have heard a pin drop. My eyes were glued to that window, waiting for something, anything to happen. And then, the front door opened. I kid you not, I almost screamed. The door swung open slowly, and I could see the outline of a man standing there, just barely visible in the dark. My breath caught in my throat. Was it the guy? The ex? The one who wasn't supposed to be there? He stepped outside, and I swear I could feel the tension in the air from my bedroom. He didn't look around or act like someone who was sneaking in or out. He just stood there, like he was waiting for something. And then get this, he walked straight to the edge of the yard and stood under the streetlight, staring right at my house. Right at me. I dropped to the floor so fast I almost broke my neck. My hands were shaking, and I could feel my heart trying to punch its way out of my chest. I didn't even want to look again, but I had to know if he was still there. I peeked through the blinds, just barely, and he was still standing there, motionless. Y'all, I can't even explain how terrifying that was. This wasn't some nosy neighbor or a random visitor. This guy knew I'd been watching. He knew I was paying attention, and he wanted me to see him. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 without thinking twice. This time, I wasn't playing around. I told the dispatcher that someone was in my neighbor's house, someone who shouldn't be there. I told them about the man standing outside, staring, and the fact that this whole situation had been escalating for weeks. Within minutes, 2 cop cars pulled up, lights flashing. The guy? He was gone. Vanished like he was never there. I didn't see him leave, didn't hear a car, nothing. But I wasn't imagining things. I saw him, plain as day. The cops knocked on the door, checked around the property, but of course, there was no sign of anyone. They asked me if I saw which way he went, but all I could tell them was that he'd been standing under the streetlight. They checked the house again, this time more thoroughly, but nothing. It was like the guy disappeared into thin air. Here's where it gets even weirder, though. After the cops left, I got this pit in my stomach. Something was still off. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat by the window all night, waiting for something to happen, but everything stayed eerily quiet. This morning, I went outside to check the yard, just to see if maybe he'd left something behind, some sign that he'd really been there. And there it was, right by the streetlight where he'd been standing. A note? A single scrap of paper, folded neatly, lying on the grass. I picked it up, hands shaking, and opened it. There were only 2 words written in sloppy handwriting. Stop looking. I dropped the note like it was on fire. I don't know what the hell is going on, but this has officially gone from weird to dangerous. My husband is taking this a lot more seriously now, especially after I showed him the note. He thinks we should stop digging, stop watching, stop everything. And honestly, he might be right. But part of me can't shake the feeling that if I stop now, I'll never know the truth. I'll never know who that guy was, or what's really happening inside that house. And now that I've been noticed, now that they know I'm looking, what if it's too late to just walk away? So yeah, that's where I'm at. Update 5. Let me backtrack a little. After finding that note, stop looking, my husband was adamant that we should leave this alone. He kept saying, this isn't our problem. We don't know what these people are capable of. Logical? Absolutely. But logical doesn't work when you're trapped in a mystery like this. It was like the note was a daring me to dig deeper. So, yeah, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept replaying the last few weeks in my head: the gunshot, the sister, the van, the guy standing under the streetlight, and none of it added up. If that guy wasn't the ex, then who was he? And what exactly am I supposed to stop looking for? Then, 2 nights ago, things escalated again. I woke up around 3 a.m. because of course it's always 3 a.m. feeling like something was off. You know that eerie silence that almost feels louder than noise? That's what woke me. I sat up and immediately checked the window, because apparently that's my new normal. The house next door? Pitch dark. No kitchen light, no bathroom light. Nothing. That was weird enough, considering the lights had been on nonstop for weeks. But as I was staring at the house, trying to figure out what felt so wrong, I saw it. A shadow, moving slowly, creeping along the side of the house toward the backyard. My blood ran cold. It was him. I didn't even have to see his face to know it. The same shape, the same deliberate movements. He wasn't walking, he was sneaking. And then, like he knew I was watching, he stopped. I could barely make out his figure in the moonlight, but he turned his head ever so slightly in my direction, like he was daring me to move. I ducked down immediately, heart pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. What the hell was he doing? And why was he so interested in that house when it was supposed to be empty? I waited, trying to calm my breathing, listening for any sound. And then, from the back of the house, I heard something that froze me in place. A door creaking open. I wasn't sure if it was my imagination, but it was so distinct, so loud in the dead silence of the night. He was going inside. But why? I couldn't just sit there anymore. My gut was screaming at me to do something, even if it was the stupidest idea ever. So, I grabbed my phone and called the cops again, whispering into the phone like I was in some spy thriller. I told them someone was breaking into the house, gave them all the details. They promised to send someone out right away. While I waited, I couldn't resist looking again. I slowly peeked out the window, terrified of what I might see. And then I saw at the back door of the house was wide open. But the shadow figure? He was gone. Now, here's the thing. If he went inside, why didn't he turn on the lights? The house was still completely dark, and I couldn't hear a single sound coming from inside. No footsteps, no movement. Just the creepy open door, like it was inviting me to come see for myself. I didn't, obviously. But the cops arrived pretty fast this time. I watched as they checked the house, flashlights scanning every window, every corner. I thought, finally, they'll catch him. But guess what? No one. No sign of forced entry. No one inside. The back door was unlocked, but there wasn't a single clue as to where the guy went or why. And then one of the officers came to talk to me. He was polite, but I could tell they were starting to think I was crying wolf. "Ma'am, we didn't find anyone. Are you sure you saw someone?" he asked, and I wanted to scream. I knew what I saw. I wasn't imagining this. The officer told me they'd keep an eye on things and to call again if anything else happened. But the way he said it made me feel like they were humoring me at this point. But here's where it gets insane. After they left, I decided to scroll through our neighborhood app again, the Ring one where people post everything from lost cats to suspicious activity. Well, someone else had posted right around the same time I was calling the cops. A woman 2 streets over heard what she described as footsteps on her roof. But when she went outside to check, no one was there. Another person chimed in saying they saw a man in dark clothing running through their yard around the same time. I'm not crazy, y'all. There's something going on here, something bigger than just a creepy ex lurking around. It's like pieces of a puzzle that don't make sense yet, but I know they're connected. Then today, because of course this nightmare won't let me have a moment's peace, the sister showed up again. I saw her pull into the driveway, but this time, she wasn't alone. She had a man with her, someone I didn't recognize, and they both looked tense, like they were bracing for something bad. I tried to mind my business, but I couldn't resist watching from my window again. They went inside, and I don't know what they were doing, but they weren't there long. After about 30 minutes, they came back out, looking even more shaken. The man was carrying a couple of bags, and the sister? She looked pale, like she'd seen a ghost. They got into the car and sped off without even glancing around. I don't know what they found in there, but it clearly wasn't good. Now, I'm at a crossroads. I can't shake the feeling that something is building up to a climax. Every instinct in me is screaming that this isn't over, not even close. But the logical part of me, the part that's still sane, it's telling me to back off, stop prying, and hope this blows over before I end up in real danger. Update 6. What went down over the last 48 hours is beyond anything I could have prepared for. After my last update, things went quiet for a few days. Too quiet. It was like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath, waiting for the next shoe to drop. The sister hadn't been back. No strange van lurking around. No shadows moving in the night. But I knew that this wasn't over. You don't go from full-blown chaos to radio silence without something big waiting in the wings. Then, yesterday, it all came crashing down. I woke up to a massive commotion outside. At first, I thought it was just the garbage truck, but the sound wasn't right. I threw on some clothes, rushed to the window, and there they were. Cop cars, an ambulance, and wait for it, a SWAT van, all parked in front of my neighbor's house. My heart stopped. This wasn't just a welfare check or some random break-in call. This was big. Before I even had time to process what was happening, my phone rang. It was my husband, calling from work. Apparently, one of his coworkers lived nearby and had seen the whole thing unfold on his way out this morning. And get this, the house was surrounded because the man, the one I'd been seeing, the shadowy figure, had barricaded himself inside. Yup, barricaded. But wait, it gets worse. The cops had found evidence linking him to a series of break-ins and assaults in the surrounding neighborhoods. Apparently, that's what the van had been doing, scouting houses for him. But what they hadn't realized until now was that he'd been living in my neighbor's house this entire time. He wasn't just lurking around in the shadows. He'd been squatting there. Turns out, the horrible accident the sister mentioned, it wasn't an accident at all. The guy the ex had shot his partner during an argument, but she survived and got a restraining order against him. He went into hiding, and apparently, he'd returned to the house, breaking in after she'd been hospitalized, living there without anyone knowing. The banging noises? Him trying to get back in after sneaking out to avoid the cops or the neighbors. The lights that kept turning on? Him staying hidden inside during the day, watching, waiting for the perfect time to strike again. I was in shock. I couldn't believe it. All those times I saw him, all those noises, he was there, inside, while I was just a few feet away. The standoff lasted for hours. The whole street was blocked off. Neighbors were told to stay inside, and the tension was suffocating. I stood at my window, watching the SWAT team prepare, their movements sharp and calculated. I could hear them calling out to the guy on the loudspeaker, telling him to come out, to surrender, but he wasn't budging. I felt sick. My mind raced back to the note - stop looking. He knew I was watching, knew I was getting too close. What if he had decided to come for me next? What if I had really pissed him off by calling the cops all those times? And then bang. A loud crash echoed through the neighborhood, followed by shouting. SWAT had breached the front door. My breath caught in my throat as I waited for the next sound. Anything to tell me what was happening. It felt like time had stopped. Minutes later, they dragged him out in handcuffs. He was shouting something incoherent, fighting against the officers as they shoved him into the back of a squad car. He looked wild, disheveled, angry, like a man who had nothing left to lose. It was over. They had him. Later, I found out from a neighbor, who of course heard it all through the grapevine, that they found all kinds of disturbing things inside the house. Evidence of his squatter's setup, weapons, and a stash of photos he'd taken from different houses in the neighborhood, including mine. He had been watching us for weeks, maybe even longer. The lights I kept seeing? He had rigged the timers to make it seem like no one was home while he was lurking inside. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. But here's the final twist that sent a shiver down my spine. The van, the one I kept seeing, it belonged to one of his accomplices, who was also arrested that day. The police believe they were planning something big, and my constant calls and snooping might have thrown a wrench in their plans. I don't know if that makes me brave or reckless, but either way, I'm just grateful they're off the streets. So, here we are. The nightmare is over, and my neighbor's house is finally empty for real this time. No more shadows, no more creepy lights, no more notes telling me to stop looking. But I can't shake the feeling that I was too close to something truly terrible. I keep thinking, what if I hadn't noticed the little things? What if I had brushed it off like everyone else? I'm still rattled. My husband and I are considering moving, to be honest. The whole situation has left a stain on this neighborhood, and I don't know if I'll ever feel completely safe here again. But for now, I'm just trying to process everything that's happened. The house next door is being cleaned out by the sister. I haven't spoken to her, and honestly, I don't think I will. I don't need to know the rest of the story. I've seen enough. So, that's it. The end of the mystery. The man in the shadows is gone, but the fear lingers. I'll never look at an overgrown lawn or a flickering light the same way again.